Hi, I'm El Ninja Cupcake.
And I'm Jerica.
I'm Acting Grimes, or Air, if you prefer.
And I'm Jay, and this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
Hi.
We're back again to infiltrate your ear holes.
Get out all them juicy bits and fill them with our angelic timbre.
Whoa, that was ASMR meats.
It's some ASMR meats.
ASMR meats. Yum.
No, NPR. It's ASM NPR. There we go. I got there. Self 5.
It's NPR.
Yay.
We're here to answer your questions. Today, we will be talking about druids.
Kind of putting the cart before the horse there, Jeriker.
With ASMP, I was imagining something like, and today on Druid Talk.
Oh god!
Oh no!
We have
Oh,
infiltrated,
no.
Have I destroyed
and now
Jay?
We've hurt them. How dare
I'm
Am
you.
I
sorry.
still? Am I here?
Are any of us really?
Without your DM, there is no guidance.
That's true.
We would run
Alright,
amok.
I'm gonna guidance us right back onto the tracks
Yeah.
to the podcast town.
Are we doing a dungeon crawl?
Yes, a dungeon crawl, where we go through things that were cool and exciting this week in Dungeons and Dragons. What is new for you guys this week?
I'm going to kick one off with something that I use all the time and realized I haven't pushed on this show. Okay, so if you are like me and you like to min your maxes, but also at times max your mins, you might like anydice.com, where you can get super nerdy with numbers. And if you want to figure out how to do the biggest amounts of damage possible or whatnot, you can literally put in any combination of dice and modifiers, and it'll give you the spread and distribution in any number of different ways. The most you can roll, least you can roll, averages, mean, median, mode, the whole thing, for any role that you can think of. So it's a fun thing. I was recently playing in a one-shot where we were allowed 6 level characters, and my thought was, what is the most damage I could figure out how to build a character to do in one round?
Now, to be fair to you,
Yes.
for once, your DM did specifically specify that this was intended to kill you. That
He
this
did.
adventure was
He-
designed to murder you.
Yes, the lovely Ilum of the Shadow Council runs a one-shot dungeon stomp every Saturday night. And yeah, prides himself on murdering the players. There have been deaths, so I did want to make sure I brought forth something
Wow.
efficacious. So I brought
Mhm.
forth a 2 cleric, 2 fighter, 2 paladin,
And he brought the word efficacious.
and he brought the word efficacious. And it was so I was able to do...
And there was
Like-
much rejoicing.
Yeah, I think on average, like 78 damage in one round.
Wow.
Fun times.
Now, of course, this is a Nova type scenario. This is like
Yes,
you
yeah.
can do this once
a
or
fight.
twice.
Yeah. But it's fun when you do it, and then you basically run away if the thing doesn't.
Well, for those who may not know, the term "going nova" refers to when you use up a great deal of your resources in one round to create the most efficient turn, but then you're sort of spent for the day and require a rest before getting your resources back. Well,
I
that's
even
Nova.
got the Clarence voice.
Where did Clarence get here?
Okay,
And
Clarence has
let's
a different
hope he
voice.
never
thank you,
leaves.
That's my nerd voice. Clarence is a little higher, a little more childlike. Come on now. You gotta get really deep into this J lore.
It had just been a while since I'd heard him, so I figured,
What's the difference between J-Lo and J-Lore?
A J lore is a type of nerdy pit fiend.
one of them's from the block.
Yeah. Used to have a little, but now has more than a little. One might even say a
Oh my
lot.
goodness.
Alright.
Fuck. Alright. Well, we're done for the day. That's as good as it's gonna get.
Yeah,
We can't top this. I would like to talk about Pathfinder 2.0.
I gotta get on this train.
I was originally a 3.5 player for like 3 weeks. It wasn't exactly 3 weeks, but it was not a very long time of my D&D career. I was a 3.5 player right at the end of 3.5. I got in on Pathfinder, played it for years, quite enjoyed it. I tried out 4th edition, didn't like it, went back to Pathfinder again, and then I took like a big break from D&D for a couple years, came back to Pathfinder, and then eventually made the switch to 5th edition. So me and Pathfinder go way back for a long ways. Now, that being said, Pathfinder is huge, bloated, and a lot. There's just a lot. It's a tremendous amount of content. So realizing that D&D is sort of blowing up right now and they need to really get on this train while it's at the station, Pathfinder's decided to release a 2nd edition of Pathfinder that is supposed to solve a lot of the big problems with Pathfinder. A lot of design philosophy has changed since then, so they're trying to update it. All of that lore just to get to the point. Pathfinder 2.0 is coming. What does this mean to us? It means that I am reading the Paizo blog every other day and having strong feelings about it. I think I talked to you about this, Cupcake, once, where I was listing off like some of the stuff that they were listing out for Pathfinder 2.0 and how it's still quite dense.
It was a lot of information.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like they've peeled back the layers too much. I mean, obviously we haven't actually got the playtest material in hand yet, so we can't really know. Having looked at some of your character creation options in Pathfinder, it looks like you're gonna mostly be dealing with feats. The whole game's going to be sort of feat-based, everything. So your class gives you access to a pool of feats, and each class ability is basically a feat you can take, and some have level requirements and other feat requirements. And then your race gives you a pool of feats that you activate as you level up. Background gives you access to a few abilities that are feat-adjacent. So it's basically just going to be entirely feats. Everything is a feat.
It's feet all the way down.
I like feet that go all the way up.
Okay.
Do we know if it's going to wind you, like, pigeonhole you into places where you have to take certain feats to become relevant and have feats that build on each other?
Well, see, that's going to be something that would definitely come out in playtesting, but there's certainly that potential. That's a very astute observation, is like, if you have, 50 feats, that's great, but if only 10 of them are actually viable for a high-level character, then you've basically just got 10 feats that everybody's going to take.
It's been a big problem in World of Warcraft, is, like, you get pigeonholed to do things to become relevant at all.
The balancing game is very tough, especially when you're trying to offer a ton of variety and choice, because you're almost always going to slip up eventually and let something in there that's just innately better than everything else.
Mm-hmm.
5th edition has kind of avoided this by having different things available at different levels. So there are certain classes that just have better 5th level options than other classes, or better, 3rd level options than other classes. But the 7th level option or the 11th level option may kind of balance things out a little bit. So, like, there are classes that are just better up front, but then long term, they're all kind of even. Whereas if you just allow feats at every level to be selected by a class, then isn't there just gonna be a path that's the best to follow? I don't know. To be determined. Watch here as Pathfinder continues to develop. There are some things that I really like about the playtest materials they've announced so far. They have 4 success and failure states on every spell. So there is critical, there's already these success and failure states in the game. Critical failure, critical success, success and failure. But each spell has specific outcomes based on what kind of success you get. So if you critically succeed on a spell, it does double damage, for example.
That's nasty.
Yeah, and if you, critically fail against a fireball, so let's say you critically fail, you take double damage. You critically succeed against a fireball, you may take, half damage or no damage. You may just completely avoid the fireball entirely for that critical success. And then there was, there were some examples of high-level spells like Feeble Mind, where if you critically fail on your save versus Feeble Mind, you just become, completely stripped of all capabilities. You become basically like an animal.
Yeah, there's that low chance that it will have that full kind of crushing effect of leaving you just a ravenous beast of a person.
Sounds familiar.
I don't know. Feeble mind. Who gets feeble-minded? Certainly not anyone here.
Only careless fools.
And bardic whispers.
I feel seen.
I really liked the switch of terminology from race to ancestry. That's a nice change.
Oh, that's cool. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be a race. It should be an ancestry. It doesn't make any sense.
I dig it.
There's some interesting things. There's some things I'm really worried about.
Remember, Cupcake, do you remember in, like, WoW when they, like, had to, I think it was with Pandaria, or maybe it was Warlords, where they had to do, like, the stat squish because the numbers had gotten so big that their servers couldn't even compute them anymore?
Oh, honey, they are getting ready to do that again. They're taking you from, like, eye level 960 to, like, 100 or
And, like,
200.
They have to do it, right? Because the numbers just get so ludicrous, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the EP measuring contest, but in
Speaking of
tabletop
ludicrous numbers,
form. Do tell.
Nice segue.
the D&D related video that I've seen online has 13K plus views on YouTube. It is the Dice Camera Action new season 4 opening animation, and it is fucking amazing. I do miss creepy I Wanna Play, but you know, you need to switch it up every once in a while, and fucking the animations are like right on. So
Paint me a
I'm
picture,
excited for
Jareka.
that starting in May.
Like a Segway tour through a small European town. That Segway was circuitous, but I like it. I like their new intro. It looks so rad.
It is, yeah, badass.
Ellenja Cupcake, for your edification, it's sort of something like a silhouettes sort of thing, where the four
And they do
characters
like
are
their
in silhouettes.
magic and whatnot. They do their like
Mhm.
like signature move, like Paulton's signature move is
Move his drinking.
drinking.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's badass, and you know, they're level 10 now, so I think that, don't quote me, but yeah, so obviously they need a badass intro to, you know, tell everyone how awesome they are.
Halfway
Is
to
it
godhood.
like a
Yep.
congratulations for surviving 10 levels with Chris Perkins?
Kind of, yeah.
Indeed.
They had a cute one before.
Well, we are recording this podcast a little bit later in the week than we usually do. So I'm going to jump on this. Oh my god, the C team is back.
Oh wow,
train.
we actually can be relevant.
We actually
Yeah.
Yay!
So
Topical.
I don't.
Relevant.
Tell me, Cupcake. I really want to hear your thoughts specifically.
Okay, so C Team Wednesdays, I try to be as productive. Like, I try and get everything done all day so that I can sit on the couch and fold laundry for the whole time on C Team, right? I was making dinner and I heard them say, Brahma is dead. And I about dropped pasta all over my kitchen.
There was a lot of freaking twist into like Oak Baby. Like I might have like just got distracted for like 5 minutes, and I like go back to check on Akink on your updates, and I was like, ooh, there's a baby. It's Oak and maybe Brahma. And I was like, what the fuck did I
missed
miss?
maybe Brahma, but the like picturing.
There was no
Okay.
baby Brahma,
But just like naked Oak Baby in a satchel, like, hey, how you doing? Just kind of skeeved me out a little bit.
oh, I'm a demigod.
The most fucked up part
You're welcome.
was when fucking Cathris mind melded with it and it just talked like a fully grown adult.
Right?
What the fuck?
Because he's a demigod. And that's like, okay, so is Brahma a demigod? That would be really cool, but like, what are the implications? Where the fuck is she?
Okay.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if she's dead, it's like,
She's
okay,
not.
wait.
She's not dead.
But she
No, she's
can't be
not.
because we've already seen
No.
the season 2 bit. What if that's a dream, though?
Well, so there's a lot of possibilities that have been presented in this last episode alone. First of all, doppelgangers exist.
Right?
Doppelganger Brahma died, or Brahma that we saw in episode 1 of season 2 was a doppelganger. And I'm not saying that that's the answer, but it is one that presents itself because of the events of this episode.
Well, and they also had brought up in the podcast, too, that, like, you just die and you get resurrected in this version of D&D, so it's not a big deal.
My personal theory is that this is some real deep C-Team shit. So if y'all ain't watching C-Team, I apologize. But there was a time in Scala where we saw Prince Shimmerscale under the same influence of Tiamat that currently Brahma appears to be from our last encounter with her. And he was dead and being puppeted.
What you're talking about is Brahma under that temple, was
Yes.
it? And she was controlling undead,
Yes, she was
right?
controlling undead.
Right.
She had a white mark on her like neck.
Yeah.
And she was very cold and cruel. We saw Shimmerscale acting in a very similar way and being puppeted undead. He was dead and he was being puppeted by the 5 heads of Tiamat. I have a feeling that maybe she died fighting Tiamat's cult, and then because the Tiamat wanted Dinar to be its champion, but Dinar escaped, it had to find another champion. It went into Brahma, brought her back, but under its control. That's my current theory.
Yeah.
So she's like back, she's under its control, and then they'll like rid the control and get Brahma back. That's my head canon.
I don't fault Walnut for breaking down in
course.
tears because devastation, but I would like some more information.
Yeah, and Rosie was just like, have we seen the body?
Sorsha. Right. I mean, I get it. Like, devastation. I get it. I'm sure that Jerry was just, salivating for the, exposition opportunities that will be presented in future episodes.
He
so,
has been
sure.
sitting on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but basically, moral of the story is, if you're not caught up on C-Team, you will not be disappointed in this last episode.
Yeah, you gotta go
So
watch
good.
that.
Real
season.
good.
Sometimes on this show, we talk about druids. And now is one of those times.
Because we're doing another thrilling edition of
Roll call! We really need like an organized intro to that segment.
So we have been bringing on prospective quote-unquote experts in these fields. And this week, we have our very own Jarika.
It's me. Oh, boy.
Jarika.
It's Riker.
I love druids. That's my CV.
That's your CV?
Yeah.
You're hired.
Yay. What's my job now?
It's also your job to harmonize with the forces of nature and prevent the destruction of natural environments. So good luck with that.
Sounds good. Oh, yeah, totes. Yeah, in this environment, politically, I think I'm going to have a really easy time doing that.
Exactly.
In this economy.
In this here and now. All right, so I've played 4 druid characters, and I'm on a quest to play each subclass.
Ooh, I like this quest.
So I have Jarika, who I played for a couple years. She's a variant human, Circle of the Moon druid. So her full moniker originally was Jarika of the Vultures. The next druid that I've played longest is Moral, and I've played her for a couple months, maybe 1 or 2. She is a Circle of Spores turtle, and I love her to death. She's very limited in her effectiveness because Circle of Spores depends a lot on the creatures that you're fighting. They need to not be immune to poison, and they need to be humanoids for it to, really matter a lot. So, that doesn't happen super often. It will happen more in other adventures, depending on what you're in. But I actually had a lot of fun role-playing her. So she is kind of turtley, and she was not raised in society, but she loves tea, and she grows mushrooms on her back, on her shell, that she hands out to people. And
Does she turn the mushrooms into tea?
She
Is
can.
she making kombucha?
Yeah.
And is kombucha impressive in D&D?
Oh, definitely. Especially for Moral.
Oh, yay.
And actually, so we were doing an adventure, and I wish I knew the name of it, but we were in this wizard's tower, and we were trying to find this item before this giant got to it. I think it was a cloud giant. And something happened, and Moral kind of offered everyone some mushrooms, because, that's how she greets people. I think somebody's wild magic bullshit went off or something. And then forevermore, it was blamed on the mushrooms.
Yeah.
So,
Listen, edibles are a good way to make friends, but sometimes shit gets real.
yeah, indeed. So that's Moral. And then I've played the next 2 I've played only in one shot each, and that is Cathedral Draub or Rahuthli. I guess it's Thedral Rahuthli. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so she is a Circle of the Land druid, and her land is the Underdark, and she's a drow. Surprise!
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Scandalized.
Ooh, scandal. But part of what I thought about for Cathedral was there's a lot of animals that have poison abilities on top of their damage that they would do in attacks. So she was the one that I was like, okay, I'm going to use beast forms that have poison damage and like spiders and snakes and spells that have those things. So or things like infestation, things like creepy crawly related. So there's a lot of spells that are kind of buggy or kind of creepy crawly.
It's super fun to give yourself like a theme. Like there's a lot of creativity and constraints.
Oh yeah. So, and I kind of like when my character has like a theme where they're making very specific choices, this and not this, to kind of create a cohesive theme. So I enjoyed that. Yeah. And then the last one that I've played is Trissis, and I actually played that in one of Ilem's one-shots, and I did not die, thank goodness. Trissis was the first druid I've made that to kind of capitalize on something that I've seen in how druids work and how their spells work. So Trissis is an Eladrin, and there is a spell, which is a great spell. It's one of my favorite druid spells, called Conjure Animals, where depending on the animal's CR rating, you can conjure, I think it's 1, 2, 4, or 8 of them. And they're not animals, they're fae. And Eladrin are of the Feywild and fae. And I thought, kind of like an anti-walnut in a way, Trissis might get real upset when she learns, oh, those animals that I've been conjuring and sending into battle are the same thing as me. And who am I? And what is the moral quandary here? So Trissis is stuck in autumn for her Eladrin form because she does not want to let summer out to be aggressive and kill more conjured animals. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, so you've got a good host of characters here, and you're kind of making your way through the pantheon of druid type characters. But what is it that really drew you to that specific class and made you want to experiment so deeply?
Yeah, I really enjoy interacting with the beast abilities. There it is. So there's certain abilities that you see that are repeated depending on the kind of beast that you're talking about. So like you have pounce or pack tactics or charge or things like that. And then there's some beasts that have their own specific things. But I see a wealth of tools in beast stat blocks that I really like to take advantage of. And I think I personally think that Druid is one of the most creative classes that you can take for that reason, because you have this whole bevy of beast stat blocks that you can interact with. I also like that they can do magic. So you have that going.
Yeah, they are a wild shaper and a full caster.
Yes. So I like the wild shape and the caster skills. I think they're more interesting than some of the other things. And I think that you could build a druid that goes strength heavy or dex heavy. So you can kind of choose which of those you feel like you want to do. Although they normally have weapons that are strength.
I really like to get Shillelagh on my druids so I can dump strength and dex.
Yeah. Shillelagh is a pretty good cantrip.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really dump dex because it's your AC, but you can take it down to like 12 instead of 16.
Right, and then if you're beast shaped, then you actually have the beast dex anyway. So
yeah, and like your hit points really don't matter as a druid so much, because if you get backed into a wall, you can always just wild shape and get the wild shape hit points, which can be pretty sizable.
Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, it's tough. Druids are tough. They might be the closest thing to an imbalanced class in 5th edition. They can be pretty out there sometimes with that wild shape. But while you're in a wild shape, your options are dramatically reduced because you don't have access to your spells. So
right. So it's like claw or bite. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or claw and bite if you're lucky.
Right, and at higher levels that gets a little bit more interesting, but like early on it really can be It's basically like, do I want to be a versatile caster in this fight or just a meat shield for my party?
And that is basically the decision between Circle of the Land and Circle of the Moon, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Circle of the Moon is the only one that really gets useful wild shapes. The Circle of the Land, by the time you get a wild shape that can be used in combat for any, it's already kind of outdated.
Oh,
like it's CR, 1 when you're level 8. It's crazy.
Exactly, right. I'm actually working on an idea for a concept for a charisma forward druid, where the smallness of the beast form is actually her advantage because she's cute. So she can charm people with her cuteness.
Sure.
Well, she charms and then she goes into cute animal form and then
druids are versatile. They have a lot of flexibility. Has there been a restriction in druids that's been any kind of like difficult to deal with, anything like that? Have there been like something that you've been lacking that you really wanted out of it?
Yeah. Well, so playing Circle of the Moon first, what made me spoiled as hell because the beast shape is amazing. Like, it's a bonus action to change. You have more powerful beasts. There's less restrictions. So I always, whenever I play another class, I'm like, damn it, I wish I had Circle of the Moon beast shape.
It would
but
be
I get
extremely convenient to be an alligator right now.
Oh shit! Like crocodile, I swam my party straight out of the swamp. That was great. Yeah. So that's always something I bitch about to myself. But I think it would be cool. I mean, there are some options for spells. Concentrating on spells after you've wild shaped. So there are some, so Moonbeam, I believe, is a concentration spell, and it's also a really effective area of attack spell. And so you could cast it and then and wild shape and then continue moving it. So, that's fine.
One thing that I've heard another person complain about with Druid is that there's no real sword and sorcery build for a Druid. Like, you can still be very melee because of your beast shapes, but they were looking for specifically a build that was built more like a fighter of nature, like a warrior of nature.
I think if you wanted that flavor, the Oath of the Ancients Paladin would probably be maybe more in line.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, for the druid type, there's no
I would
more
say
melee focused.
My regular humanoid attacks are the thing that I'm thinking about the least because they're the least effective.
Absolutely.
So I totally understand that point of view.
So I was thinking maybe a druid subclass that could, like a paladin,
Circle of the Swole Muscle. Or you could just take Savage Attacker.
Maybe you could burn wild shapes for extra damage or something like that. So like a...
But you only have 2, though.
Well, the thing is, like, it could be like a rage resource where maybe you take on like a bestial form. Like, you become like Beast Man and then you get like claws or something like that. And you do extra damage.
Oh, it'd be like Altered Beast.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a werewolf person.
Yeah,
like
a beast person.
Yeah, there's like a precedent with like, there's werewolves where you have your human form, your wolf form, and then you're in between. So I can see
so maybe
that.
like the Circle of the Lichen or something.
Circle of the Lichen. Mike Merles, get on it.
I actually think if people are interested in some homebrew goodness, Matthew Mercer from Critical Role has done the Blood Hunter, which is kind of like a Witcher style character in D&D, and they have an Order of the Lichen where you can become like a werebear or werewolf or something as druid? One of their subclasses.
Are they a druid?
I'm just trying to make your dreams come true now, okay?
Well, this had kind of like reminded me of this question from the Reddits from Mono Fox. He said that his druid wants to play the party tank as a bear, and he wanted to know how to encourage and reward this. And I guess some of that kind of ties into it. But if you have any other ideas, that'd be kind of cool.
I really like the idea, and I don't know if this is quite what they were getting at, but I've heard people throw around the concept of, maybe my druid character actually spends more time as a beast. Like, maybe the wild shape is actually them turning into a human.
That would be cool.
That would be I think that's really cool, and I would love to play a Circle of the something. where it's backwards. So if you want to go so far as to make a new subclass where that happens, then that's a huge reward for your player. But magic items are pretty great.
Wait, it's not just a humanoid who likes being a bear all the time. It's a bear who has learned to become human.
Yeah.
Circle of the man flesh.
What?
There's just this guy walking around going.
This is the second time
love
this
this.
week that I've brought this group back to Jungle Book.
It's true.
I love it.
Bear necessities. I absolutely love that it would be a bear and then combat would start and it would turn into a naked dude and they would be like, no, you were a bear. Go back. Why would you even bother?
Yeah.
I think that you Critical Role had a item that Keyleth got, which were like some claws that she could hold, and when she would go into her wild shape, it would cause her to have like flaming attacks.
Yeah,
so
that's
it tapped
cool.
some. It added like a little bit of damage onto her wild shape attack damage.
Or even like boosting the AC, like a magic item. Like there's a Eon Stone of Protection, I think it is, that gives you a boost to AC. I mean, that would help them keep their hit points a little longer so they can stay in bear shape longer.
I would recommend looking into some other beast forms and then maybe reflavoring them as higher tier bears. So maybe he meets like a super powerful bear in this one wilderness and he gains a beast shape that is basically just a reflavored like gorilla or something like that.
Yeah.
So you're using the same stats as a beast shape that actually already exists, but you're reflavoring it to be a higher tier of bear so he doesn't have to stop at CR2, because right now it's like polar bear is like the highest one at CR2. If you're wanting to reward a player for taking creative action or for acting in a way that you think is conducive to a fun game, then you can just help them with whatever they think is unfun about it. So if the player's complaining that he gets hit too much, like she was saying, you could give them something for their AC. Or you can give them advantage. Just be like, oh, I really like that scene. I thought that was really fun. You get DM advantage.
Unless you have a bard in your party and then you never get advantage.
You get my special worser advantage that sucks.
Well, trickle down, doesn't it?
Trickle down inspirationomics.
There's gotta be someone who's done like a study of like economics of inspiration.
Listen, he spends every week coming up with a really cool parody song, and we have to reward this behavior.
I wanted to say that if they're specifically interested in tanking, a lot of tanking, quote unquote, I don't know if there's really tanking in like the kind of the MMO sense in tabletop gaming, nor would I want there to be. I want the DM to be running the enemies like intelligently. But the idea of like there's the Polar Master and Sentinel combo are always really big for tanky type characters to kind of make it so certain enemies can't get away from them. They're very sticky, which you can't really do with a druid. So I would love to like maybe reflavor those feats. Actually, something Jerica did for an upcoming one shot we're playing in is the druid that she's playing in that game, because Jerica is got real long leggies. So maybe like you could reflavor the whole polearm thing as having a bear with really long arms or really long claws or paws or etc., etc.
Yeah, and ultimately, sometimes fun is its own reward. If he's having a blast, just let him do it.
It's true.
What's the next question? Ideas for druid who is a hippie living in the woods.
Which
Who
was kind of cool.
isn't?
Cathedral was kind of in that category.
Well, so
Super
Cathedral's
original.
also big surprise. Not necessarily 100% mine.
Yeah.
So she's technically the sister of Cathristraub, but she would have come from Galadur as well, which is a city in the Underdark. A lot of my characters are hippie loners, but I do think Trissis kind of breaks this mold because she has a whole Eladrin family and friends and things like that. So there's that.
Alba from Holly Conrad
Yeah.
in Dragons and Places. She was a druid of the city, basically.
Yes.
She communed with city animals like rats and pigeons and things like that. And so she wasn't a hippie loner in the woods. She just liked liked animals. I think that the central theme of a druid is just an appreciation and respect for the natural order and natural world. I don't think you can divorce that from the druid, but what you can divorce it from is, the stereotype of a druid who just lives in the woods and thinks all men are crazy. You can certainly put your druid in a city and just be a person who thinks that, maybe the city needs a park. maybe there should be a little more harmony between the city and the forest, but they can still like the city and like people and be happy. Could
I put forth an idea? So in the DMG, there are ideas for evil subclasses, fallen, paladins, clerics of death, but there isn't anything for a druid. So a druid that has kind of fallen out of the graces of nature, or sees nature as a force to be dealt with, and is instead has like a corrupting influence or wants to destroy the natural world, might be an interesting idea to run with, a fallen druid.
That would be very cool.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think that there are plenty of ways to make your if you're having trouble coming up with ideas to make a character or class unique or interesting to you, I think that is not necessarily the class's fault. I think that you need to open your ideas up, maybe look to some other people for advice, or go to some of your favorite media for inspiration, because these classes can work for pretty much anything.
Speaking of favorite media, if you want to see an example of an not by the numbers, by the book druid, our beloved C-Team, featuring Amy T. Falcone, has Walnut, who's possibly an eco-terrorist druid, which also seems like a super cool concept, but she is every one of those players plays their classes in very unique and interesting ways, and Amy is definitely an example of that. Walnut is one of the most interesting druids I think I've ever seen.
Definitely.
Wait, hold up. Is the first question, can you milk a druid?
No,
But
I wanna go back.
Okay.
I wanna go back to druids with cool concepts.
I just saw something awful and I had to shout.
You do it, Jerica. You go.
So Rachel Seeley, I believe is her name. She was a guest on Dice Camera Action. She played a druid. I believe her name was Miranda. And she was a druid circle of dreams. She had little Vegapygmy friends, and so she kind of took her society with her into devastating and terrible situations. But that's another way to do it. She was just very much almost like a mother figure, I think. So I think that's even a different take on it, because her relationship to the Vegapygmies was really important and actually drove a lot of her decisions.
And Rachel, yeah, she's a fun player. She also is a very interesting paladin on Girls Guts Glory, which I've seen a little bit of. Moira, so she's also a cool person to check out. Just fun character classes. But back to druids. I'm sorry.
So can you milk a druid?
First of all, I hate and despise this question.
Who asked? Who put this here?
Only a stupid person would ask this question. No, I'm just kidding. Only a person who doesn't understand the beauty of how freaking lactation works would ask this question. I would say you would have to get consent first.
No.
And secondly,
No.
the person in their humanoid form would have to be lactating.
Well,
This question
I
is a
just
sin.
back up, because you answered a very different question. The question was, can you milk a druid? You answered, how do you milk a druid? Consent first, obviously.
This question is
Yep.
evil.
Well, I would say you couldn't milk it without consent.
Oh, of
Is
course.
that radical?
True. Yes.
Jerica,
true.
your point has raised a terrifying thought to me.
What happens to the baby in utero?
Yeah, if a
Yeah,
druid wild shapes, does the baby get born as a human or a bee shape?
Isn't that an interesting question that a DM could adjudicate at the
No! It's an awful question that I hate.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, no, I absolutely need a hard and fast ruling. To sage advice on Twitter.
Yes, indeed.
Crawford, answer me
Oh,
now.
boy.
This
God.
is one of those times I would pay to see Jay's face.
Imagine that somebody was having a literal screw driven into the back of their skull. That's sort of the state that I'm at. That's where I'm at right now.
But can we just appreciate for a minute that at the end of that question, they asked for a stat block for a cow?
Yes, there's something very important. And what's great about that is there are canon stat blocks for cows available.
I hate it. I hate it. I don't like it. Does
Yeah,
the
I
druid
agree.
get left behind? Is the next question.
Yes.
As the characters level up, they're wondering if, druid gets kind of left behind by the other players. The answer is no. Next question.
Tell me more about
I'm way, way, way down the rabbit hole. So someone asked, can men lactate? And I clicked the link. And now this is my life.
Air!
Air.
Get out of there!
Look away.
Bail out.
Look away. Look away.
Clear your
look
browser
away.
history.
There's only horror and inconvenience on the way.
Alright, so does the druid get left behind? Okay, so here's the thing. Damage-wise, maybe. But do they get left behind as a class? No. They have wild shape. They have a ton of hit points. As many hit points as like a barbarian by the time you count them all up. Between beast shapes and things like that. Even the barbarian's damage reduction doesn't really keep them... So they can take a shitload of damage.
So in a fight between a barbarian and a druid,
We've seen this!
who would win?
We've seen this play out! Keyleth versus Grog in Critical Role at high level, like a 20th level battle royale. We saw Keyleth just tear Grog apart. And Grog is like one of the most overpowered characters in Dungeons and Dragons history. 20th level barbarians get friggin' nuts, but 20th level druids can wild shape infinitely.
Woo.
Yeah.
And also cast spells when they're...
Yeah, and when you wild shape, you get your hit
Shaped.
points. So it's like, oh boy.
As a bonus action, so
Yep.
knocks her out of
You have to
being an
kill.
earth elemental.
Yeah, you have to kill the character in one round.
Yeah, Archdruid is a nasty level 20 ability.
Yeah, it
You
is.
hear that? You fucked.
Yeah.
So my question is for you, Miss Draga.
Mm-hmm.
Playing these different druids that you have, as you scale these characters up higher and higher in level, as they're of different circles, do they feel different?
So Draco was 14, Moral was 14, and I didn't actually play her at any other level. Cathedral was like 4, and Trissus was like 3 or 4. So Draco's the only one that I've actually had a journey with.
I'm so sad that you didn't play Bana as a druid. I love Bana, don't get me wrong.
Isn't that, and I haven't played a druid in any of your games, Jay. It's like really funny.
Yeah, it's like, it's
I don't
crazy.
know why that's happening. I've got some in my pocket when you kill my...
Your second
Right.
longest running character is not a druid.
Yes, indeed.
That's wild.
So I would say that because your wild shape is increasing, you're fine. And there are some... So like for Circle of the Spores, which is Moral, they're actually... I think it's level 14. They're immune to critical damage. So there are... things that scale abilities that at the high end are, appropriately have an appropriate impact on the dynamic of the game and how it's played. So like level 4, I think it's level 16 or 18 that the druid can cast spells in wild shape. Mm-hmm. So, like you're starting to get on the nitty gritty and the mechanics at that point. So I do think that, I never felt as a druid at a higher level that I didn't have enough tools in my box to do something. Mm-hmm. I was kind of disappointed. Conjure Elementals is a spell you get, or you can choose for a druid at level 10-ish, something like that. And it has a casting time of, I believe it's a minute. And that kind of made me sad because you can conjure animals in combat, it's an action, but for elementals you can't, it's not really feasible. And I think that you kind of lose out in that higher level spell. But that's a very minor that was a very minor disappointment for me. So
I think I've seen the conjure elementals once, and it was used more like a trap, kind of like I'm gonna just leave this here in case something comes by. Yeah, level 18 beast spells, and then I didn't realize this, but Archdruid is more than just an unlimited number of times. It also lets you ignore the verbal and somatic and material components of your spells while you're casting in any form.
Fucking beast.
Yeah,
with a capital B.
This is the thing that makes me so bad being a bard, because it's like, druids, you can use your thing as much as you want forever. Bards, you get one more inspiration if you don't have any. It's so lame.
Yeah.
So yes,
Wow.
your powers are the best, and good choices.
Yes.
Good choice.
I love them. They're all my children, and I want to, when I die, be absorbed into the druid pantheon and
There
have
you
a
go.
circle made just for me.
Lady
Circle of the
Jiraika.
Jiraika.
I would play
Circle
this.
of the sass. I would too.
Circle of the lady.
That's kind of cool, though.
I'm gonna think about that a little more. Anyway.
Yeah, I have played exactly one druid.
Tell me.
I played it in a one-shot of Haley's devising, and because we knew it was non-combat going in, I created a Kenku druid of the Circle of the Land, and he was from the frozen Arctic plains because he was a Canadian Kenku druid.
Oh god.
Wait,
And
where's
his-
Canada and Faerun? Tell me.
North of Icewind Dale, just north.
The northest north that ever north.
Yeah, it's friggin' Nolan North. Yeah, he had lots of fun spells. He could conjure water, which he turned into snow because it was freezing, to decorate a Christmas tree. It was a good old time, and because he was a Canadian Kenku druid, his name was Chester Fields.
Oh my god.
Wowie.
I also
Yeah.
have only played one druid, and it was a Kenku druid.
Ooh.
I totally bit El Ninja Cupcake Steez that time because it was like, what Cupcake did was rad, so I'm gonna do it too.
It's okay, I'll share it with you. You're north of the wall.
Tell us more about this druid.
It was Board Creek, because I guess that Kinkus, like birds, will pick up random noises. And it was a non-combat one-shot of your division. And I never have been playing a druid, like, in anything. Was like, well, what am I gonna do? This is just this random Kenku. It's a bird. It probably wants to be around trees. So I imagine it had like this little cottage out in the woods all by itself and like never sees people, so it's incredibly socially awkward. And thought I'd roll with that. It sounded fun.
It's a really
It
good
worked.
concept.
Board Creek was great.
It was great because there was at one point we had gone up and opened up a door, and it was a soldier that was with a bag of flour or something.
Dancing, yeah. Having a little dancing with the flower bag, yeah.
Yeah, that Embers got in there and delivered some real smooth
Woo.
wow. Like,
Yeah.
wow. To try and be like one of the team. I think like one of the last lines that he delivered was something blue cloth. And Board Creek would pat him on the shoulder and blue cloth.
That's the secret to playing Kenkus. Find the one weird thing that someone says, and that's now your thing that you say to them.
George!
George!
Exactly.
And I want you to know,
Yep, that's great.
El Ninja Cupcake, that Board Creek lives on in Shambhala. One of my NPCs is named Board Creek.
What?
Nice.
Yeah, I have Board Creek as a
Aw.
tavern owner in Istendel.
Love it. Oh, I love it.
Please tell me they're incredibly socially awkward. And they yell out George at happy hour.
Yes.
It has begun. If I was going to make a druid right now, it would be a genasi. And it would play up that elemental, probably the Conjure Elementals thing.
That would be good.
And it would be very associated with the elements.
A dragon?
Which Genasi would you be, though?
Isn't that a great question? I personally, Aaron, has affinity with air.
Oh, me too. I have an affinity with air too.
Oh, you all stop. No.
So,
You folks.
that's always a consideration. Fire's pretty awesome though, and like super useful because you air blows on somebody, maybe they get rustled. You fire burn somebody, all of their combustible stuff that they're wearing or carrying burns. So
That laugh was a little bit. It just all burned.
yeah. So I mean, that's two very different effects.
Jay, have you ever played a druid or created any druid NPCs? Or
No druids ever. We've never fought a creepy ass
maybe even
Frankenstein druid.
one?
I chose a druid early on because druids are very strong, and they are difficult to kill. So I thought, as a villain, that's a desirable quality. They can get away easily. Once their B-shape health points are gone, they can just run.
He was like the first. I think he was the first major combat
He
encounter
was.
we had.
Yes.
And yeah, like we just kept knocking him out of B-shaped forms and just went into another one. It was like
He
this
came,
friggin' stack
attacked
of
you
hit
with a
points.
wyvern, I believe, and then
Yep.
you guys beat him out of his bear form, and then he just shifted into another bear form, did 2 attacks, did a lot of damage, you beat him out of that bear form, and then he just took his wyvern and flew away. Because I was
the
like, oh,
same
well, he's
druid?
used both his wild shapes. He's done. Bye.
This is the same big bad ugly, right?
This was right, Cupcake. This was before your time. Yes, the main villain, the one that's just like ascended to semi-godhood in our game. We fought like as the first boss.
Okay, I want to know what circle he's of so that I can like wild shape into hotness.
I'm guessing Circle of the Moon, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to get that
It's like
information.
Circle of Maybelline.
Circle of Maybelline.
Maybe.
I've given you all a very good hint about his circle very recently, multiple times.
What?
Yeah, you guys have received a very specific
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's Circle of Dreams, isn't he?
circle of
'Cause
dreams.
he's been in our dreams all the friggin' time.
Yeah, circle of dreams.
Duh.
Yeah. Well, in some of their dreams.
Are his legs tired?
Ha ha ha. Cupcake with those smooth lines.
Oh boy. I think we're gonna have to end it there.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this latest episode of Inside Check. We would love to thank Vinswept for our beautiful intro and outro music called Never Stand Alone. If you haven't heard the lyrical version, go do that. We would also love to thank Miss Amy T. Falcone and tell her congratulations.
Soon misses.
Right? For our social media branding and these adorable chibi little faces because
We just want to squish.
we do. We want to squish them and pinch them.
They're
So
almost as beautiful as the ring now adorning her finger. Segue.
Oh.
yes, if you have not already, give us a review and a little rating. All the stars are appreciated. Not that I'm going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to strongly suggest because I have a very specific set of skills.
And by the way, thank you so much. We've had a couple of iTunes reviews lately. It's really helped us out. We finally got a score on iTunes.
Yay!
It's really, really been great. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. I know it's kind of a pain to go hunt us down in iTunes and give us a score, but it's really appreciated, and we do thank you very much for doing so. It really does help us out.
We would love to say thank you. Continue. Keep up your good work. We'll keep up ours.
Answering your cues from our collective A's.
This
Is
Could be.
Insight.
check.
Oofa-doofa bloofa boy. That's my somatic component for summoning an MC.
Sure, oh crap, we lost Jay again.
He'll be back. Soon
be
you'll
back.
see.
You'll
He'll
remember
remember
he
he
belongs
belongs
to
to us.
Oh my word.